Good morning. Happy Sunday. Welcome to BMG Fly, Black Muslim Girl Fly's second book talk episode. Last week we talked about the amazing young adult novel, Fatima Tate Takes the Cake, and actually got the chance to speak with the author on our live book talk, which was really awesome. Khadija Van Brakel, and she's also one of our Friday features who graced us with a chat. So at BMG Fly, our goal is to amplify, uplift, and empower Black and Muslim girls and women. And one of the ways that we do that is to provide a platform for us to share our unique perspectives, talk about things that are important to us, and share our stories. And the novel that we're talking about this week is You Truly Assumed by Laila Sabreen. If you haven't seen this book yet, it is one of two books that just recently came out that star a Black Muslim American girl as the main character. Believe it or not, these are the only two books that I've found. And actually, Khadija had mentioned last week that the reason why she wrote Fatima Tate Takes the Cake is because she and her daughter were trying to find novels and couldn't. So she created one. And essentially, Laila did the same. And I read both, and I read this one first, and I totally enjoyed the story. Before we dig into what the story is, I'm going to let you know a little bit of background behind our organization. BMG Fly was started back in 2018 in Los Angeles. I am an independent filmmaker, writer, director, and producer, and I moved out to LA from Baltimore back in 2005 with the hopes of sharing our stories through film and television. As Black and Muslim people, we've never really seen ourselves authentically portrayed in film and TV, and so I thought, let's do it. Let's be, just like Khadija said last week, let's make that. It doesn't exist, so somebody's got to create it. So that's what I did. I started making independent short films. I founded the production company Audace Entertainment, and I've written and directed and produced shorts, some features, won a few awards, created a series with a group of amazing, talented women of color called East of La Brea, which won some awards back in 2020. And here we are now through Black Muslim Girl Fly. I want to continue that momentum, bringing opportunities to other people, building community, and alhamdulillah, we have a lot of storytellers that we have featured every Friday. Even though that was not my intention, it just happened that way. And I really do believe that the best way that we can take control of our narrative is to tell our stories, whether it is in film, in television, or books. Now, back to the book. This novel gives you the perspective of three different Black girls, three different Black Muslim Girl Fly in America. One who lives in DC, Virginia area, the other in Atlanta, and the third in Los Angeles. And each has a different perspective, which I thought was great because it shows the diversity of the Black Muslim American experience. So the culture that you get to witness from the character who's in DC and Virginia is very much different than the girl who grew up in LA. And I got the feeling that the South LA neighborhood that she grew up in was very reminiscent of Inglewood in LA. And so as somebody who lived in LA for over 20 years, I really picked up on a few of the references, even though she changed the name of the city, which was really cool. Another thing that I liked about the story is that it revolves around connection. And so the premise is that these three girls happen to connect through a website, which is a blog started by Sabriya, one of the main characters. And she is a ballerina in the DC, Virginia area. And something happens. There is like a bombing, and there was like a terrorist attack, they called it. And immediately everybody just assumed that it was a Muslim, and it turned out that it wasn't. However, there was still backlash. So there was this backlash. Everybody assumed that it was Muslim. So the story revolves around how these three different women, these young women all across the country, deal with the backlash of this terrorist attack. And they have this blog that they write on, one in LA, one in Atlanta, and one in DC. And they contribute to this blog online. And the drama comes when, you know, the alt-right gets wind of it, and then there's controversy in Sabriya's community because her contributing to the blog affects her family's livelihood as her father's boss finds out about it. And so there's a lot of drama in this story revolving around identity politics and what it really means to be able to express yourself freely in America without the threat of your life, pretty much, and these young women and what they endured. And one of the things that I really love is that each girl responds differently, and you get the idea that because of how they grew up and their community, their responses are reflective of that. However, there is a thread that's found that because of their Islam, because of the Muslim element of their community, there is a uniqueness in the way all three of them respond. And so you have to read it. You really have to read it. I highly recommend. I highly, highly recommend. Like I said, this is only one of two books. And I have been an avid reader and in love with storytelling since I was a little girl. And alhamdulillah, in September, I'll be 50. And so I feel like this is a great 50-year-old present. I've been waiting for this for 50 years. And I know there are a lot of young Muslim out there who have been waiting as well. Not as long, but seriously, get this book if you haven't. You can even borrow it from the library if you want to read it first before you purchase it. But I do recommend you purchase your own. It's called You Truly Assumed. And the author's name is Laila Sabreen. And the use of technology is one of the things that I really liked about the story because it served as a story element that connected the three of them, even though they lived in different places in the United States. And then having them being able to express themselves with vulnerability using the blog. And also they had FaceTime and Zoom, which kind of immerses you in their life, in their lifestyle. And as somebody who did not grow up in this generation, I'm Gen X, it was very refreshing to see how they dealt with the Islamophobia, with, dealing with racism in their communities, and then how they showed up for each other. The sisterhood element was a very big love of mine. So even though they weren't in the same cities, they still found community with each other. And that's one of the things, like I said, it goes back to being Muslim. In our community, you show up for each other. That's literally what BMG Fly is based on. The sisterhood of being there, what my girl Aliyah Sharif calls the girl code. If you've seen her on here on Instagram, I love her clips where she talks about the girl code. And Sabriya and Zakat and Farah definitely know about the girl code, and they definitely stand on that. Another thing that you'll like about it, it's very contemporary, but it also is very inclusive. And so there are certain elements in each person's community that tap into stories that usually don't get told. So I don't want to give away too much, but there is an experience one of them has in the tech world, dealing with tech bros and misogyny in the tech world. So it's not just the focus of, this is what I deal with as a Black and Muslim girl, but there's intersectionality when it comes to stuff like that. Another element is the ballerina. So Sabriya is a ballerina, and that's something that you don't really find in the Muslim community very often. And it's something that's very rare in the Black community, actually. up until like recently. So of course we have Debbie Allen and Misty Copeland, and the fact that these women have been trailblazers to make it possible for young women like Sabriya in the book to think that of course I can become a ballerina. But even as short as 20 years ago, it's quite unheard of to think, oh, I could be a Black ballerina. So yeah, so these kinds of elements in the story are beautiful because they're woven throughout the story in such a way that's matter of fact. It's not like tokenism. Although sometimes it did feel like I was getting a lesson, an academic lecture, but those parts of the story were very much important. For example, when one of the girls was talking about her grandmother's experience in Los Angeles and dealing with the history there with the race riots. And, you know, there was also mention of the fact that, you know, the Great Migration and the thought of having PTSD with regard to racism in America. Like, these elements are woven throughout the story that are very important to talk about. And a lot of times we don't get to talk about these issues. And so it's wonderful that they've shown up in this story. It brought to mind like I don't know if you're familiar with the series Watchmen on HBO, but with Regina King starring in it, the way that they wove the history of the Tulsa Massacre and just like those different elements woven throughout the story, which were important to the story, but not the story, was similar to the way that they were woven throughout this story. So I think you will enjoy that. If you are someone who enjoys fiction, get this book and jump in. I listened to it on audio and I read the book, and it is a joy that I think you will enjoy. So that's my review of You Truly Assumed. Just a brief talk about it, and I encourage you, especially if you're a young Muslim girl who likes stories, who likes novels, this is a book that you should definitely get, along with Fatima Tate Takes the Cake. And even if you're not Muslim, it's a great book for you to read, just so you can be immersed into the experience of what it's like to be a Black Muslim American girl, whether you're a ballerina or a software engineer or an artist, a cartoonist, or a dancer, or a baker, a pastry chef, whatever it is. Those things exist in our community, and, you know, it's very good for you as someone who loves stories to get a peek into that. So yeah, that's it. That's my brief talk about You Truly Assumed. I was hoping that I might have some questions that people might have had about the book, but no problem. I think that it is something that you will enjoy, and I hope that if you do like it, you'll message us to let us know what you thought, because not everything isn't for everybody, and I definitely would love to continue the discussion about what you liked and what you didn't like. And yeah, so part of the reason why we at BMG Fly are using stories to talk about our experiences is because that's one of the ways that you connect with people. And with fiction, there are so many opportunities for you to weave in all these different elements. And just to take a quote from Stephen King, you know, one of my favorite storytellers, I'm a big fan of, he said that the fiction is the truth in the lie. And so when you're reading, you're getting a lot of dose of truth while you're going on this journey of these made-up stories. And it's also a way for you to have empathy for people who are not like you. So I definitely recommend you to pick up the book. And if you're not Muslim, I think you will still enjoy it. And if you're a Muslim, you will definitely enjoy it, especially seeing yourself in a story such as this. All right, everyone. Next week, I will be back with another book talk. We will be talking about another book by a Muslim author, and I can't wait. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I will be posting here, so follow along. If you're not following us here, do follow, and then click the little icon so you can get notifications when we do post things, because I definitely want you to get the benefit of our perspective. We are owning our narrative and letting you know what it really is like to be a Black Muslim woman in America and a Black Muslim girl in America, not what you see on television right now, which we are definitely working on changing. There is not enough representation of us authentically in television and film, but I do recommend a few. If you haven't seen Jinn, which is a film directed by Najla Mukmin, that's a film that you should check out for another story about a Black Muslim American girl. And I'll also add a few more recommendations on our next posts that are related to the story that I'm going to be talking about next week, which is a different genre. So far we've gotten some young adult fiction that's pretty much, relationship drama. The next one is a little less that. I'll drop the hint that there's a mystery involved, which is my favorite genre of story. I love mystery and I love action. So, all right, then I will hop back on in a week. And between now and then, I will be sharing different posts about all the different stories we're featuring. And if you have a story that you'd like to talk about or that you would like to see featured, please do email us at team@bmgfly.org. And I'll see you next week. Bye. Assalamu alaikum.